right, I'll say, how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to exist? Are you all alive? Well, thank you very much. We begin this interaction this evening of your time with the notion that there are throughout the multiverse, which is, shall we say, our updated terminology for what you label the universe, many different forms, different styles, different expressions, as you say, of consciousness. Yours being a particular focus, a particular representation of a choice of style of experiencing reality. In your particular case, shall we say, you create, as far as the scale within the relative realities to yours, a very finite, a very solid reality. You are near, shall we say, the end of the need to experience physicality, and are what we label very arbitrarily within what we would again label third density, or you have labeled third dimension, but density, shall we say, is a bit more precise. Our civilization is what we would label fourth density. The last, shall we say, density within this particular octave of existence to be physical. Fifth density is the idea of the first gradation, if you will, of non-physicality. There are but a few differences, shall we say, in the ideas of between third and fourth density. What you have chosen to experience and are indeed at this time exploring is a bit more of a limited point of view. It is a very valid expression and takes in that way very bold souls to be able to impose upon themselves that much forgetfulness in terms of your natural, shall we say, connection or extension more precisely of yourself from what you label God, what we prefer to call and feel is a bit more precise, all that is. Therefore, you do choose in that way to experience certain limitations. One of the limitations we wish in that way to discuss this evening of your time will be contained within what we shall suggest will be the title, if you will, of tonight's interaction. It's about time. For in a very real sense, we will discuss briefly the idea of how it is that you do create time. When we say you create your own reality, it has, shall we say, become quite a catchphrase within the new age of your planet. We mean it, and we mean it literally and 100%. Now, very many of you will say, well, it sounds very nice. I do assume I have some control over my affairs, but not really 100%. All right. That, too, is a belief. However, recognize from our standpoint that it is 100% that you do create your own reality. Even again, if you use 90% of your creatorhood to make it seem as though you're only using 10%, in fact, you are still using the full 100%. And any seemingness that you may have that you do not entirely create your own reality, well, shall we say the paradox to that is you are creating that seemingness. So it still goes back to you. The idea you label time, many of you may not realize, is also part of your creation. You have heard the fact, or shall we say the saying, that physical reality is an illusion. That time, in that sense, is an illusion. From the perspective of all that is or God, it may seem illusory, but let's face it, when you are choosing to create it, it seems quite real. This, however, does not mean at all that you are not creating it. Simply that you are that good at creating it. One of the purposes, and again there are many, for you to create time is the idea of discovery, of being able to, as you term it, progress, of being able to not know, find out, and then know. And you do very literally create time from yourself. An example. You have the saying in your society that time flies by when you are having fun. Well, in fact, it may seem in that sense to fly, but that is not the precise mechanism. The mechanism involved in that instance is that you actually create less time. Therefore, if 2 of your hours have passed by your clock, shall we say, and you have only experienced, shall we say, 20 minutes, in fact, you have only aged physiologically 20 minutes. You have created, in that sense, less time by being in the moment. The paradox truly is, shall we say, from the viewpoint of the infinite, and also experientially from your own viewpoint, experientially, the only actual existing time is now. Always now. You create the idea of an illusion of a continuum. Not in that sense recognizing that in each and every given now moment, you entirely recreate your own reality. You do so in such a similar way along that path of gradating it that you create the illusion of continuity. The reason we are bringing to your attention at this time the idea that you do create time is because you use it in many ways. And some of them we sense have, as you say in your terminology, tripped you up. So allow us now to present to you one of the ideas in which, or one of the ways in which you use time, that you now, by simply being made aware of it, will have the option to change, if you desire. Again, we do not insist that you have too much fun. It is up to you. The idea will be again as follows. Because you only do exist in the here and now, as you have heard, by extension, you have created the illusion that the now, the present, is actually experientially a result of the past, and will, in that sense, by extension, result in the future. That, however, is but a standpoint, is but a viewpoint. From our perspective and how we have chosen to create it in that way consciously, you always only exist in the now and create or recreate the past from the present. This is quite demonstrable in that in any time you are, quote, reflecting on your past, you are actually recreating a scenario about what you perceive that your past was, but in the present, in the now. Recognize that experientially, however, this is not the case other than that definition you assign it. For the way that you create your reality, as we had opened up by saying, and as you have heard many times, is through your belief system, which you have also heard. Believing in that sense is seeing. For when you believe something, you act as an individual that believes that. You have chosen to become physical, and your actions in your physical life are what creates your own reality. So therefore you dictate in that sense your actions according to your beliefs. Therefore, any belief you have because you act as though you have it is for you a reality. Or so, shall we say, does it seem to be. By operating on the premise that the present is a result of the past, you recreate your present, however, in a way that binds you to that very past. The reason we again are bringing it up in this light is very often it is a past you do not prefer. And therefore, you do perceive in that way that things are happening to you now because of something which happened in the past. No. The only reason in that sense that it appears that way is because you believe that it must. And you are actually recreating in the present, in the now, that scenario as being a result of the past. And again, it only is because of your definition, because of your belief system. Now we begin to offer to you, as we have many times to members of your society, the notion that the present is not experientially speaking, a result of the past. You always have in any given now moment everything that you need in order to do whatever it is within integrity that excites you at any given moment. In that sense, you are a complete and full toolbox. And there are no, shall we say, tools that you must go to the store and buy. It is all there right now, which again is the only time there is. The idea of the future, extending this out, shall we say, linearly in the other direction, is that there is no one the future. It is that there are infinite probabilities of futures, each of which on some level of all that is will be lived out. If you decide in that way to take a right down the roads of your life instead of a left at a particular, shall we say, fork, some portion of your consciousness on some level, which will not be immediately apparent to your conscious self as you are now, will have taken the left and lived it out. And this is what we have labeled probable realities. However, you always get to pick which reality you will exist within. Therefore, rather than there being a future to predict, in a sense, everything that is possible and probable is out there as a possibility. So it isn't so much what will the future be as which future will you choose. You can begin now to decide that everything that does occur within your life is, in every given moment, every now moment, a choice anyway. And what this implies is that you have the power, by extension again, to make another choice, which you always do. When you begin to reflect on the idea that the present is not a result of the past, you free yourself up from using that past, in a sense, as an elaborate excuse to continue to do things you do not prefer. But there is no real momentum behind those things. You are recreating them in the now. And in that sense, very really, perpetuating them as a choice. And you do not have to. Now there are many ways. We are not saying you cannot. Certainly you can. And certainly within your society, many do. And still, in that sense, continue to create their reality. But if you feel your past binds you up, you may wish to cling to the option we are offering now. For it is all, again, simply a belief. When you will recognize again that you have everything in any now moment, and become the you wish to be now, not using things you did in your past as an excuse why you cannot, another interesting thing will seem to occur. That past will seem to have changed. For when you redefine who you are in the now moment, by extension you must have had a slightly different past to be the different new you. So therefore, in any now moment, when you do transform, when you do change, you do, in that sense, change your entire past and your entire future automatically anyway. And then in that sense, you can have, shall we say, the past that will allow you to have the present you desire. One technique that we shall suggest, which is very simple, in working or playing, which we prefer to label it, with this idea of redefining the relationship of past, present, and future, is what we shall label, retroactive reconstruction. And it is very, very simple. You do in that sense, again, perpetuate your now reality very many times by what you have done in your past. And again, that sense, bind yourself to that past. Oh, I am the type of person that does this type of thing because I've always done it that way. And therefore I always probably will. All right. But that is simply, again, a definition. If you wish to now begin to play with these ideas, then this retroactive reconstruction will come in quite handy. For the idea is there is nothing any more real about what you perceived your past was than what you perceive you wish it was. Remember, you are drumming up and recreating a past in the present. As you change, although you are not always conscious of this, you even recreate that past slightly differently. You latch on to different things that happen that allows you to be the you are now. So you can see that the past even fluctuates in your usage of it. What you can do, which you may find to be very helpful and is very interesting from our perspective, is to recreate a past that you preferred. By doing this, simply establish who it is you wish to be. Use your imagination to conjure up the image of who it is you wish to be. Your imagination is very good at this, and you will find it to be quite cooperative in this way. When in fact you have gotten a solid image of this idea, then use that same imaging to create the past that that individual would have needed to have in order to have that present. If you will now plug that past into your own framework, say, for instance, for you to be the person you wish to be, you feel it would take you 10 years. Simply create a memory 10 years ago that you had begun to, in that sense, begin to do that thing. What you will find is it is very easy to reassign that new past. That will then make it okay, acceptable, to have the present that you now desire, for you can now say it came from the past that led up to it. Now we realize this may seem like juggling, tap dancing around with semantics, and it can be just that. But it can be far more if you are willing to allow it to be. Because you simply, again, do that right now. Simply using, again, what you perceive to be your past to perpetuate things you do not prefer in your present. This works very well if you have what you label a dis-ease process that would take, as you say, 5 years to heal. Regress in your imagination back to 5 years ago and begin that healing then. That will then make it acceptable to be healed now. And the key is this. When you do that, when you go through that whole imaging and come to the now person that you prefer to be, all you need to be that person now is to act like you are already that person, and if you need have it, with that past. This works, for it is, again, how you already do it. And again, what you perceive to be your past is not etched in stone. You are recreating it. You are changing it. You are distorting it. You are warping it. If you perceive there was something quite traumatic in your childhood, and you must relive that, well, shall we say to us, that does not make very much sense. You already lived it then. You already explored it then. You already got what you needed then. You can create the need to do it again now, but recognize you, again, are creating it. And you do not have to, unless, of course, you prefer. So it will be, in that sense, always up to you. Now, similarly, again, when you change the now you are in the present, by extension, your future projection will change. But by beginning to live now, here and now, you will allow yourself to be awake in the reality you have chosen to experience. Very much, or very often, the upset that many of you say you create stems from the past you did not prefer. Reassign the new meaning, and you will get the new present. as you begin, in that sense, to live in the now and do what it is that is most reflective in any given moment of who you are, as we have said, you actually create less time and henceforth age in that way in a slower fashion. So in order to, if it is desirable to you, to expand the span of your life, all you need simply do is stay in the here and now. When you do create what-if scenarios, when you do spend much of your time pondering the past, you are negating the present that you are now creating. So simply, if you will reestablish your relationship with the present, you will always know in any given moment what is available to you at that present. Since those are the only things you can act on anyway, why bother to worry about the future what if and the past I wish it wasn't? You can in any given moment that you feel yourself being swept away by this again, recognize that it is a choice. Take a few deep breaths, relax. Don't allow yourself to become reactive. Allow yourself to explore in any given moment what you are thinking, how you are feeling, what you must be believing to feel that way. If a reaction, quote, reaction is about to happen that you do not prefer, recognize that that reaction in and of itself is a choice in the moment. And again, what that implies is there are other choices. Very often when you create great upset, you are not allowing yourself the awareness of the other choices. Shall we say, if your choice is even between getting upset and one of the other choices is to not get upset, if you allow yourself to see that that is another choice, I would imagine you may be more prone to pick it. And this will give you the chance in that sense to break free, colloquially speaking, of what you label momentum, that you feel has trapped you into doing things you do not prefer. But remember, you are creating that in any given moment. So simply now, in this given moment, we thank you for the opportunity to share with your civilization in this way. It enriches us greatly to be able to be exposed to that much more of creation. That many more ways that all that is expresses itself through infinite creation. And we appreciate very much the opportunity to be able to appreciate your consciousness, to share with you, to co-create with you. And for that privilege that you have allowed me in that sense to partake of, I ask you now, how may I be of service to you? Sharing